Welcome to Third Floor Views, a production of Chesapeake Family Life, where we talk about health, education, and living with kids. I'm your host, Janet Jefferson. Today, we're discussing the new Navy Football Players Council for Racial Equality. Here with us is Navy football coach Robert Green, who is Director of Racial Equality and is leading the new council, and Myles Fells, Senior Slot Back and Council Member. Thank you for being here with me today. To our viewers, please feel free to submit any questions in the comment section and we will get to as many as we can. Let's jump right in. I'd love to hear Coach Green just a little bit about how the council came about and why you put this council together and how it came to fruition.
The weekend immediately after the George Floyd murder, we came together. Coach Neil Montalolo wanted to do something beyond just social media postings, and so we urged him that, Coach, you have to do something on social media. That this is 2020. You can't say, you have to say something. He says, okay, I will, but I want to establish something larger and something more meaningful and something that is lasting. And so his first thought was to go to his peers at the AFCA, American Football Coaches Association, and establish something that they could do as football coaches, all right? And so they had a meeting that following Wednesday. He came back to me and pitched some ideas. Okay, what can he do? And he basically gave me what his initial thoughts were. He wanted a council of players. He wanted it to be representative of all races on our team, and he wanted it to get going immediately. And so he says, I found out at that moment you're the new director of racial equality, and you need to get going right now. Don't waste any moments, any time. Subsequently, we also had a team meeting, I believe on that Friday, and our guys, Myles and his teammates, got up to speak on what they were feeling about the current social atmosphere in our country, and we were so impressed with the level of understanding, the level of passion and emotions behind it, that we also felt extremely comfortable in allowing and giving them a voice outside of our team, so that they can go out and express these things to a greater population, namely our school and our campus, but also beyond the walls of the Naval Academy.
Was it hard to put this together? Were there any roadblocks you came across or hoops you had to jump through?
No, ma'am. I'm an old Marine, and we find ways to get the job done. And I say that a little bit of joking, but no, with the young people we have, particularly Myles and his teammates, his classmates, it was very easy to get started from our perspective. The athletic director was on board. We already have a chief diversity officer here in Tamika Lindsay, who is also our officer rep on the football team, which means she is the one of the military members who's with us all the time to guide us on the military and moral side of the house. So she's already connected to the football team. She's also the chief diversity officer, which gives us an automatic inroads to the larger piece, the superintendent and those types of people, to gain their support as well. There was no one who objected to anything. Everybody was supportive across the campus, and we could get started immediately. And so we immediately went into meeting and into nomination of the council members.
That's great. Do you feel like there's a great need for a council on the Naval Academy campus and even through the Navy as a whole? Coach Green, I'll start with you, but then Myles, I want to hear your perspective as well. Systemic racism is everywhere. What does it look like to be on the Navy campus, Naval Academy campus, and how does it feel? Where does the council fit into that?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's extremely important to give our young people a voice and a platform. I am of a generation that followed up a great generation. Our parents who fought for equal rights in the 60s and fought continuing to the 70s, 80s, and we were born into that, right? And so our idea and our outlook on the social environment in this country is a little bit different than Myles and his teammates are. And so while I have my ideas about how the racial equality fight should be fought, I am a dinosaur as it compares to Myles, because when I grew up, I did not even think that we could even have an African American president, right? That was not even a possibility for me and my generation, right? That was never a thought. But Myles has had 8 years of that, of his life, of his transition. So he looks at me like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "Sure, yeah, that happens all the time." Like, what I mean? Like, "What are you talking about, Coach?" And I'm talking about Rosa Parks and Dr. King and these types of people, and they're talking like, "Well, what about Freddie Gray and Tamir Rice and Amdad Diallo?" And they're talking about their own level of the African American experience in this country. And so, only thing they really needed from me and from my contemporaries is some guidance, some let's kick down some doors for us so that we can talk and give us an opportunity to have a platform to speak, and let us do the speaking for ourselves. And once they have a voice, I think that gives them power. And once they feel like can affect change, then they're more tied to our democracy. They're tied to this school. They feel a belonging. That people listen to me. I have a voice. I have stuff I want to say. And I think I saw that from my perspective. Basically, they basically told me to sit down and shut up. We respect all those people. We respect the foundation that they laid in the 60s and getting things, making progress. But this is our fight. And so we need you to kind of sit back. And so I will step back right now and shut up, let Myles talk.
So Myles, what I'd really like to hear is how do you feel that there's a great need for this council on the Naval Academy campus in particular?
Yes, and not just saying that we experience this blatant racism openly, but because if you haven't grown up and seen these things happen to you firsthand, a lot of times it gets difficult for you to empathize and understand what happens to other people. So, a lot of people that go to the Naval Academy, we make up historically 7%. African Americans make up 7% of the school's population. So the other however many percent, excluding all the other minorities and things like that, majority of the school hasn't experienced the same things that we've experienced. So having this council to sort of help mend the gap as far as understanding and things like that, I think it's absolutely necessary. And I hate that it took all of these things to bring it together. But now that it's here, I mean, that's all that we can think about as a way forward.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. What is the goal or purpose of the council? Coach Green, I'll start with you.
So the goal and purpose is to take our platform and athletes, and we see it at all levels, right? At the professional level, it's all over, right? At the collegiate level, but we have a very powerful voice as far as what we do here with platform now. Athletes have even at the Naval Academy, right? We consider ourselves pretty humble in our approach to athletics and what we do outside of the Naval Academy, right? We're not very boastful about what we do, but we do understand that there's a fan base, right? There's a fan base that we have. There are young kids that look up to Myles and his teammates. Coach Ken is one of the more popular people in the city, right? And in the country, in some aspects, talk about football. And so why not use that platform for good, and to use it to further the message? I mean, the fact is that a lot of athletes here are minorities, and so why not use this opportunity to give them a voice and allow them to further the cause and progress? I mean, arguably, the fact is that this is probably the third time in the history of our country that we're able to make a large leap in racial equality issues for African Americans. I mean, that is, I mean, maybe, Emancipation Proclamation, and the Civil Rights, passing the Civil Rights Bill, and now the passing.
I hope so.
And so we want to use this opportunity to use our platform when we have it.
Absolutely. So what are some of the projects that you're working on? So Miles, I'll let you sort of jump in here. What are you guys doing right now with the council?
Well, we started off we want to focus in-house, so we want to get everybody registered to vote. That's a big part of making change, especially, we're one of the most diverse teams in the country. I would feel like we got people from all across everywhere. So that's where we want to start. And then moving on from there, we have initiatives with the local police departments. The Baltimore City Police, they just had a round table with them yesterday, right, Coach Green? Yesterday.
Wednesday.
Day before yesterday, and we wanted to try to, get the police more connected with the community and kind of pitch some ideas that we had as far as getting things, mending those relationships and things like that. We've had meetings with the education side of the academy, so the leadership department, the history department, the English department, trying to fix the curriculum so that we can learn more. Our main focus for everything was education, because if you don't know better, you can't do better. So we wanted to have things implemented within the school. That way, we could just help everybody. And then with myself, I'm a part of the Midshipman Diversity team, and we've just been trying to come up with different things in the hall so we're split up into different companies, and just have different conversations in the company about what's going on, racial inequalities that we see happen, our own personal experiences that have happened to us, and just sitting down and being open. That way our voices can be heard, because a lot of times if you're just having a conversation, it can go south because you get on the defensive, especially if somebody's opinion or experience differs from what you know. So just having them come in with the mindset of, hey, this person has been through things that I haven't. I want to have an open mind, and that way we can all be on the same page moving forward. Because it's not, a lot of times when you run into conflict, it's because one side doesn't really want to listen to the other. So just having each other listen and grow, that's really our main goal.
So it sounds like you are headed in a lot of different directions, from education to forging community relationships with the police or even other community members, really diving into the curriculum, but then also looking at potential, peer-to-peer interactions. That's a lot on your plate, which is incredible. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of your short-term goals versus maybe your long-term hopes and dreams for the council. So I'll start with you, Miles. So you talked a little bit about some of the projects you're working on now. Especially since you're in such early stages of the council, what do you see long term? What are some of your hopes and dreams for the council?
Long term is seeing, it's really difficult to look that far ahead, but definitely seeing a more cohesive and understanding brigade and football team as a whole, seeing the community bond together more than they ever have. And eventually, like, the end goal is to have, a police officer pull up on some kids and they not get nervous. I know that the police are here to protect me, and I shouldn't have to be worried because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just playing basketball. I'm just doing this. That's the end goal for me. And we know that that's not going to be something that happens overnight, because I'm in the military. I haven't been, back home doing a bunch of crazy stuff in a long time. And I still get nervous, routine traffic stops, I still get nervous. And just trying to eliminate that for the people that come behind me. And that'll be like how we can make some big changes. So I feel like that would be the end goal, like the end all be all, and for kids like in my position that are the minority at schools like the Naval Academy, to not feel so uncomfortable sometimes when they're in rooms where they are the minority. Like, if you're in class and you're the only Black kid in the class, to not be as nervous, to know that I have allies in this classroom. These people aren't looking at me weird. It doesn't feel weird. We're all connected. We all understand each other for the most part. And I know that they have different opinions, and they know I have different opinions, but that's okay, because we respect each other as human beings, and we can still have a conversation.
Absolutely. Mutual respect. It's not much to ask for, but it's something we absolutely need to work on. What about you, Coach Green? What are some of your sort of short-term goals versus long-term hopes and dreams for the council?
I'll start with the long term. And one is that this council eventually we don't need it, right? And that would be awesome if we never need it again. But we're going to keep it in place for some time, right? Until we don't need it. And when that time is, who knows, right? How long that takes. But we're willing to stay and fight until it does. And so we'll keep the council in place. It is as a permanent fixture in our program until such a time we don't need it, and we don't know how long it's going to take. But I really love to see a shared understanding, at least, of the foundations of our country. Like, and that I could open up a history book, right, and read it. If I'm in Maryland, I can open it up and read it, and it says the same thing that it does in my home state of Georgia about when, where, how, and what it was. The facts, just the facts, not, and I understand emotions and it's hard you can't argue against a person's perspective, right? You can't argue that, but surely you can argue the facts. Like you can put that down in black and white. The slaves came here not of their own doing. Like, that is a fact. Like, how do you teach that at the K through 12 level in public schools? A great foundation would be that the textbooks are similar no matter what region that you're in. The South's textbooks should equal that of the North or the South or the Southwest, right? And everybody has at least a common ground understanding of what happened to our country. Not that anybody needs an apology, not that we're looking for anything else, but certainly at least a common ground of how we got to 2020 America, right? And that would be a great start for us, and that's why Myles mentioned earlier that education was our biggest initiative, is because, like he says, if you know better, then you can do better. But if you're ignorant of it, then you don't really understand. Short term, we're kind of explain how we're organized. So there's one council of 9 members, 3 members per returning class, 3 in the senior class, 3 members from the junior class, 3 members from the sophomore class. 1 African American, 1 Caucasian, and 1 other race in each one of those classes. All right. And they are the council that kind of drives thoughts and ideas. Now, the committees, however, are made up of a lot larger groups, right? So there are committees. There's an education initiative committee. There's a policing discussion committee. There's a leadership, ethics and law committee. And so those committees then can take on the lion's share of work for that particular group. So Myles, as great as he is, we can't stretch him in all 3 committees. He would go crazy. He would never say, he would never turn us down for opportunity to work on this deal, but we can't stretch him that far. So he has teammates that are maybe not as handsome, but is equally impressive, in thought and ideas and expression. So we have those guys working. We have professional coaches and doctors and staff members who facilitate each committee. And so there's someone who facilitates the policing discussion, an old guy, right, that will jump in and help Myles to do that. And we're just to facilitate. We're not there to really issue our own ideas, but just help facilitate those. Mm-hmm. And so we just met with, as Myles said, police departments, local police departments and their chiefs, and Annapolis Police Department, Ed Jackson, Bowie Police Chief John Nesky, Lieutenant Colonel Brady, from the Maryland State Police, and the Deputy Commissioner Sullivan out of Baltimore. Sat down on a Zoom call, much like today, like we're on here, and the midshipmen, some sophomores mostly, were able to engage with those guys in discussion. And so that's a big time goal. But we want to have 2-3 more of those. One, bringing in those groups that NAACP or ACLU that have advocacy groups that have a different opinion about what the police chief said, right? And so ultimately, we would love to be able to bridge the gap and perhaps provide an opportunity for all of us to come together then and talk and make some progress police department, advocacy groups, and then using our platform and our voice and our fan base as an opportunity to get their message out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we want to, again, Myles stated this earlier about the education and curriculum. Before we go out and try to change the world, try to change Maryland, we got to make sure we have the Naval Academy on board with history and get a common ground here. Because these young people are going to go out and lead and do great things out in our military, have lots of people under their charge. In some cases, they'll be issuing punishment and jail time and all that kind of stuff, right? And so we want to make sure they leave the Naval Academy with an understanding of the minority and African American experience in this country. So those are short-term goals. If we can get those things on board, which we're already moving in the right direction, we've already meeting, we're already discussing curriculum here. I think we can get that on board. That's going to be awesome for us moving forward.
Yeah, it sounds like you have been really busy already, and that's fantastic. Do you think this model can be replicated in other sports teams, other universities? Is it something that everyone can and should be doing? And Coach Green, I'll start with you.
Yes, ma'am. It needs to be. It has to be. And the reason why it is that we are just at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to racial issues in this country, right? And so I think it's easily replicated, but people have to be supportive, right? Our superintendent is supportive. The dean of students, the commandant is supportive. The athletic director and head coach are all supportive of what we're trying to do. I'm not sure what our own other college campuses, but I would hope that they are as well. But we just George Floyd was murdered, and there were protests. Well, there still has to be a trial, right? And Breonna Taylor still has to be a trial. Ahmaud Arbery still has to be a trial, and depending on how those trials turn out, things could blow up again, right? And COVID still underlies all of this, right? The pandemic is still here. And so the longer that goes on, the more people suffer and the more all this morphs from COVID pandemic into racial unrest, into unfair, underprivileged, underserved communities. And it all kind of boils into one thing. And so if we don't get this templated kind of idea into other colleges, universities, high schools, businesses, and then this thing could really fester into a moment where it gets out of control if we don't give our young people a voice and a way to change and make progress. Because those things are down the line. It's an election year. All these things all work together, and it's going to be if we don't look to the future 6-7 months, a year out, then we'll be back here again addressing the same issues if we don't give these young people an opportunity to make some change and progress.
Absolutely. So sports has long been an interesting platform for speaking out against racism, ranging from desegregation and Jackie Robinson to more recently Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. So as unlikely as it seems that an anti-racist committee is started at the Naval Academy football team, in some ways it makes a lot of sense. But can you speak to a little bit about the relationship between sports and racial equality, and where does this council sort of fit into the history of that? And Coach Green, I'll start with you there.
Yes, ma'am. And you did a great job leading into this question. I don't, if you pull up Muhammad Ali, you pull up, and it's always the sports is maybe like music is the one thing that we all can agree on that we love to. That's a part of our, I don't know, right as an American, right, to cheer on your favorite team, and we all can sit down and be fans of any particular sports team, no matter our race. And so we all feel like that is something that's owed to us as a part of our dear. So now that I have all eyes on us, right, in the arena, if all eyes are on us, then I have you captured and I have your attention for whatever moment in time that's mine in the sun. And so it's always tied to that, because that same athlete, all right, is also the man who needs the help, all right? Who also, so I posted some social media stuff back, but I, as a military member, I'm a protector, right? But then my civilian life, I'm also a protester of my equal rights, because I represent my family, my community, and everyone else who helped me get here. And so I want to see things equal as a civilian, as an American, but I also understand that as a man who's sworn to protect the Constitution, I have a right there. So sports automatically ties into all that, because largely minorities can compete and be on equal ground in the arena. And so I have your attention, and so I have something to say. I'm not just going to shut up and dribble. I'm not going to just shut up and pass the ball. I'm going to also give you my opinion about social injustices as well.
Yeah, it's a really powerful platform. And I think especially in the United States, especially football, it's something that a lot of people care a lot about. So speaking of that, Myles, I'd like to ask you sort of with your celebrity status, what advice would you have for kids? So local kids in Annapolis or even beyond. What advice do you have for kids who are excited about racial equality and doing community service and being involved in their community? Where should they start?
Well, I always say start with control the controllables, right?
Mm.
So definitely start with yourself and work and influence where you can influence, and it's on you. Don't sit around and wait on somebody to do the things that you're thinking about. So like if you have an idea about change, or if there's something that's bothering you that you want to see change and things like that, don't just sit around and be like, oh, well, somebody else will get to it, or well, I'll do it if somebody else does it. What's to keep you from being the next Martin? You know what I'm saying? Like what you're the next Barack. Who's gonna keep you from fulfilling those roles? And it's ourselves. We tell ourselves like, oh, maybe I'm not this, I'm not that, I can't do this. Nah, don't listen to the voice in your head telling you that. Listen to me. I'm telling you that you can do it, and anything that you want to accomplish, go out and accomplish that. Have a plan, think on it, ask for advice from people like Colonel Green, and I got old heads I talk to at home that I converse with. When I have things that I'm thinking about, talk to those people, and then go do it. Get in the fight, get into action, because that's when change is made. Don't just wait on anybody else. If change is on you, so go do it.
Absolutely. I'm going to have us end here on that really positive note. And I think that's a great message for all the kids, not only in our community, but beyond in the entire country. Go do it. So thank you so much to Coach Green and to Myles Fells for being here with us today to address some of our questions about the new council. Thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. Make sure you visit ChesapeakeFamily.com for up-to-date local information on home, health, and living for today's Maryland parent. This episode will be archived on ChesapeakeFamily.com in video and podcast format. I'm Janet Jefferson with Chesapeake Family Life and Third Floor Views. Thanks so much.